Russia had calculated that its surprise missile strikes would keep Ukraine perpetually defensive, scrambling to protect civilian infrastructure while Moscow controlled the tempo of war. However, Japan's unprecedented decision to provide advanced early warning systems and integrate Ukraine into its Pacific defense network has transformed Putin's most feared weapon into a predictable, interceptable threat. On March 15, 2026, when Russia launched what the Kremlin called a devastating coordinated strike involving 120 missiles and 90 drones targeting Kyiv's energy grid, Ukrainian air defense forces intercepted 94% of incoming threats. This was not luck. This was the result of Japanese ANTPY-2 X-band radar systems providing Ukraine with detection capabilities that see Russian launches the moment they leave the ground, giving Ukrainian defenders critical minutes that mean the difference between catastrophic damage and near-total interception. The integration of Japan into Ukraine's defense architecture represents something far more significant than a single equipment transfer. It marks the moment when the Pacific and European theaters of great power competition merged into a unified global confrontation. The images you are about to see on your screens will show you the physical manifestation of this technological revolution. What you see is not just radar installations or interceptor missiles. You are witnessing the death of Russia's strategic surprise capability. The footage shows Ukrainian Patriot batteries swiveling toward incoming threats with inhuman precision, guided by data flowing directly from Japanese sensors positioned to detect launches across Russia's vast territory. But that is not the most shocking detail. There are three main factors that have rendered Putin's missile arsenal effectively neutralized. The first is Japan's provision of ANTPY-2 radar systems capable of tracking ballistic missiles at ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers. The second is the real-time data-sharing network that connects Japanese self-defense force intelligence centers directly to Ukrainian air defense command posts. The third is South Korea's simultaneous integration into this network, creating a Pacific-European intelligence corridor that Putin never anticipated. We will explain the full strategic implications of this development in the later parts of the video. Now we must look at how this unprecedented alliance came to be. On February 28, 2026, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida made an announcement that shocked diplomatic observers worldwide. Japan would provide Ukraine with advanced radar systems, real-time satellite intelligence, and commit to $3 billion in additional military aid focused specifically on air defense integration. This decision represented a fundamental break from Japan's post-World War II pacifist doctrine and its traditional reluctance to involve itself in conflicts outside the immediate Pacific sphere. The announcement came just 72 hours after a Russian missile strike killed 43 civilians in Kharkiv, including 7 children sheltering in a basement that took a direct hit from a Russian Iskander-M ballistic missile. According to reports from the Institute for the Study of War, this strike served as the catalyst that pushed Tokyo from quiet diplomatic support into active military partnership. The Japanese cabinet had been debating the decision for 6 weeks, weighing constitutional constraints against the growing recognition that Russian aggression in Ukraine directly threatened Japanese security interests. The final decision came when Japanese intelligence analysts presented classified assessments showing that every Russian missile fired at Ukraine represented one fewer missile available for potential use against Japan in any future Pacific conflict. The calculus was brutally simple. Helping Ukraine destroy Russia's missile arsenal now meant fewer threats to Japanese cities later. The ANTPY-2 radar system that Japan deployed to Ukraine represents one of the most sophisticated early warning technologies in existence. This is not conventional radar that simply detects aircraft or missiles in flight. The ANTPY-2 employs X-band frequency radar with active electronically scanned array technology, allowing it to track objects the size of a baseball at ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers. When integrated into Ukraine's existing air defense network, which includes American Patriot batteries, German Iris-T systems, and French Aster missiles, the Japanese radar creates a detection bubble that extends deep into Russian territory. According to German intelligence reports, Ukrainian forces can now observe Russian missile launches from sites in Astrakhan, Saratov, and even facilities near the Caspian Sea within seconds of ignition. This detection speed is absolutely critical. A Russian Kalibr cruise missile travels at approximately 900 kilometers per hour. An Iskander-M ballistic missile can reach speeds of Mach 7 during its terminal phase. Every second of early warning multiplies Ukrainian interception probability exponentially. The mathematical reality is stark. With 2 minutes of warning, interception probability hovers around 40%. With 5 minutes of warning, that probability exceeds 85%. The Japanese radar systems provide Ukrainian defenders with 6 to 8 minutes of warning for most Russian launches, effectively transforming Putin's surprise strike capability into a predictable targeting exercise where Ukrainian forces hold overwhelming defensive advantage. The technical integration required to make this system operational demonstrates the sophistication of the Pacific-European alliance that is forming. Japan does not simply hand over radar equipment and wish Ukraine good luck. Japanese Self-Defense Force technicians worked alongside Ukrainian air defense specialists for 3 weeks in Poland to establish the data-sharing protocols. The system employs Link 16 tactical data exchange architecture, the same network that connects American, Japanese, and South Korean forces across the Pacific. Radio Free Europe reporters documented the establishment of hardened communication nodes in western Ukraine that receive encrypted data streams directly from Japanese intelligence centers in Tokyo. This creates a situation where a Russian colonel ordering a missile launch from a facility near Volgograd has his decision transmitted to Ukrainian air defense commanders in Kiev before the missile even clears Russian airspace. The psychological impact of this reality cannot be overstated. Russian missile forces know that the element of surprise that defined their strategy for 2 years has evaporated completely. This tactical victory represents something much larger than improved air defense statistics. It marks the operational integration of what defense analysts now call the Global Democratic Defense Network. When Japan committed advanced military technology to Ukraine, it did not act alone. South Korea simultaneously announced its own $1.8 billion military aid package focused on artillery ammunition and counter-battery radar systems. According to CSIS analysis, these 2 decisions transform the strategic calculus for both the European and Pacific theaters. South Korea's annual artillery shell production capacity exceeds 200,000 rounds, more than all European NATO members combined. Japan's technological sophistication in radar, electronic warfare, and precision guidance systems represents capabilities that European nations cannot match. The integration of these Pacific powerhouses into the Ukraine Support Coalition creates a combined economic base of approximately $27 trillion in GDP supporting Ukrainian resistance against Russia's $1.8 trillion economy. The mathematics of this confrontation become absurd in their asymmetry. Putin is attempting to sustain a major conventional war against a coalition that collectively outproduces Russia by a factor of 15 to 1. The strategic implications cascade through multiple domains simultaneously. For Ukraine, the Japanese radar integration means that Russia's 400-kilometer range advantage with Iskander-M systems evaporates as a meaningful military asset. Ukrainian forces can now observe launches and calculate impact points before the missiles reach their mid-course phase, allowing optimal positioning of interceptor batteries and civilian evacuation in targeted areas. According to Ukrainian General Staff reports, interception rates for Russian ballistic missiles improved from 67% to 94% within the first 2 weeks of Japanese system integration. This transformation in defensive capability forces Russia to expend 4 times as many missiles to achieve the same infrastructure damage, accelerating the depletion of Russia's arsenal while providing negligible military advantage. Intelligence assessments indicate Russia possessed approximately 2,300 precision-guided missiles at the start of 2024. Current estimates suggest fewer than 800 remain in operational inventory. At current expenditure rates of 120 to 180 missiles per major strike, Russia faces complete arsenal exhaustion within 6 to 8 months. Japan's radar integration has effectively started a countdown clock on Russia's strategic strike capability. For Japan, this decision represents a calculated strategic repositioning in response to growing Chinese assertiveness. When China observes Japan providing advanced military technology to Ukraine and integrating that nation into Pacific defense networks, Beijing receives an unmistakable signal about Japanese willingness to support partners facing authoritarian aggression. This matters enormously for Taiwan. The same ANTPY-2 radar systems now protecting Ukrainian skies also monitor the Taiwan Strait from Japanese territory. The data-sharing networks now connecting Tokyo to Kiev could expand to include Taipei with minimal technical modification. Chinese military planners studying the Japanese intervention in Ukraine must now recalculate their assumptions about Japanese neutrality in any Taiwan scenario. According to leaked Chinese military communications reported by Taiwanese intelligence services, Chinese People's Liberation Army strategists are actively gaming scenarios where Japanese radar and intelligence support for Taiwan replicates the Ukrainian model, extending Taiwan's early warning envelope and dramatically complicating Chinese missile strike planning. The deterrent effect is already operational before a single shot is fired in the Pacific. For Russia, the nightmare scenario that Putin's strategists warned about for decades has materialized with stunning speed. Russia now faces a genuinely global coalition where Pacific and European powers coordinate military support for shared strategic objectives. NATO's expansion to include Finland and Sweden created the northern encirclement that Moscow feared. Now, Japan and South Korea's integration into the Ukraine support network creates a global dimension that Russia's regional power status cannot counter. The Kremlin can threaten European nations with energy cutoffs or nuclear rhetoric, but these threats carry zero weight in Tokyo or Seoul, where economic ties to the West dwarf any relationship with Moscow. Russia's attempts to play Pacific powers against European powers collapse when Japan and South Korea actively coordinate their Ukraine policies with Washington, London, and Berlin. Putin's grand strategy of exploiting divisions within the Western alliance confronts the reality that the alliance is expanding beyond the West to include every major democracy threatened by authoritarian aggression. This brings us to the most crucial element that few analysts are discussing openly. The human dimension of this technological revolution manifests in the changed psychology of Ukrainian civilians living under constant missile threat. A Ukrainian mother in Kiev no longer sends her children to school wondering if a Russian missile will strike without warning during the school day. She knows that if Russia launches missiles, her phone will receive an alert providing 10 to 15 minutes of warning before impact, enough time to reach shelter and secure her family. According to Ukrainian Psychological Services data, reported anxiety levels among urban populations in frequently targeted cities decreased by 43% after Japanese radar integration became operational. This psychological shift translates directly into economic recovery. Businesses that shuttered operations due to unpredictable strikes are reopening. Foreign investment that fled Ukraine in early 2024 is cautiously returning as the infrastructure protection success rate demonstrates sustainable defensive capability. The World Bank estimates that Ukrainian GDP will grow 6.8% in 2026, a remarkable figure for a nation still technically at war. This economic resilience stems directly from the air defense umbrella that Japanese technology helps provide. For Russian soldiers ordered to conduct these missile strikes, the psychological burden intensifies with each failed operation. A Russian missile crew commander loading a Caliber cruise missile knows that Ukrainian defenders are already tracking his position, calculating his launch trajectory, and positioning interceptors before he even receives the fire order. According to intercepted communications published by Ukrainian military intelligence, Russian missile force morale has collapsed as crews witness 90+% interception rates, rendering their efforts meaningless. One intercepted conversation between a Russian colonel and his subordinate included this exchange: "Why are we still launching these strikes? They shoot down everything we fire. We are just wasting missiles and revealing our positions." The response from the superior officer was brutally honest. "Because Moscow needs television footage of launches to show Russian citizens that we are still fighting. Whether the missiles hit targets is secondary to the political theater." This admission reveals the degree to which Russia's missile campaign has devolved from military operation into propaganda performance. The future projection requires examination of where this integration leads over the coming 12 to 18 months. In the short term, expect Russia to increase missile and drone expenditure, attempting to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses through sheer volume. This strategy fails mathematically. Ukrainian air defense ammunition stockpiles are being continuously replenished by Western production that vastly exceeds Russian offensive missile manufacturing capacity. For every Russian missile fired, Ukrainian defenders can fire 3 interceptors if necessary, while still maintaining positive ammunition balance. In the medium term, Russia faces a critical decision point. continue expending its dwindling precision missile arsenal on futile strikes that achieve minimal damage while depleting irreplaceable weapons, or preserve remaining missiles for potential future conflicts while accepting the propaganda defeat of ceasing strikes entirely. Neither option offers a path to military victory. In the long term, the technological and industrial advantages demonstrated by the Japanese radar integration preview a future where authoritarian military forces cannot compete with the combined technological and economic power of coordinated democracies. China is watching this dynamic with profound concern. The broader geopolitical implications extend far beyond the immediate Ukraine-Russia conflict. Japan's willingness to provide advanced military technology to a European nation fighting Russian aggression establishes precedent for similar support to other nations facing authoritarian threats. If Japan can integrate Ukraine into Pacific defense networks, those same networks can extend to the Philippines, Vietnam, and other Southeast Asian nations facing Chinese pressure. The global democratic defense network that is emerging through the Ukraine conflict provides the architectural framework for collective defense arrangements that transcend traditional regional security structures. NATO remains focused on the North Atlantic. The Japanese intervention in Ukraine demonstrates that the actual security architecture of the democratic world no longer respects the geographic boundaries of Cold War-era alliances. This development may represent the most significant evolution in global security structure since the original NATO formation in 1949. Only time will tell whether this Pacific European integration proves durable beyond the immediate Ukraine crisis or represents a temporary alignment of convenience. What is already clear is that Putin's calculation that he could fight Ukraine while keeping Pacific powers neutral has failed catastrophically. The same missile strikes that were supposed to break Ukrainian civilian will have instead triggered a global realignment that isolates Russia more completely than at any point since 1945. When a nation as constitutionally constrained as Japan commits advanced military technology to a European war, the signal to other authoritarian powers is unmistakable. Aggressive military action will not be met with regional isolation, but with global coalition response that authoritarian powers cannot match economically, technologically, or militarily. Russia set out to demonstrate that the post-Cold War security order had collapsed and that regional powers could redraw borders through military force. Instead, Russia has catalyzed the formation of a genuinely global democratic alliance capable of coordinating responses across theaters and time zones. The missile strikes that Putin launched to terrorize Ukrainian civilians into submission have become the very weapon that unified Pacific and European democracies into a coordinated defense network. The surprise that Russia relied upon has evaporated under the unblinking eye of Japanese radar, and every missile Russia fires now serves only to accelerate the depletion of an arsenal that can never be replaced under current sanctions and industrial constraints. Putin's surprise strikes are not just useless. They are counterproductive, burning through irreplaceable weapons while achieving negligible military effect and unifying a global coalition that spans from Tokyo to London. What are your thoughts on this unprecedented Pacific-European defense integration? Do you think this represents a temporary alignment or the emergence of a permanent global democratic defense network? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. At TGN, we will continue to examine every development in this rapidly evolving global security landscape.